what human design means in a context of human resources and how that can help your business. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here. I am so excited about being here, about working with your team, and also sharing some of this information with the women and the companies that really, really can utilize this information. So thank you for having me.
Oh, that is so amazing. And tell us a little bit about how you found human design and how you've learned to apply it and just the amazing tool that it is.
You know, it's been probably 8 or 10 years, and I had a really wonderful friend and colleague who had gotten into human design, and I was intrigued right off the bat. And I said, can you give me a reading? And she had to do several of them in order to certify. And so she'd given mine, and it was like, holy cow, how do you know me that well? It was a little off-putting in some ways, because it made me feel kind of naked and vulnerable, to be honest, but it just resonated. And I thought, I really, really need to learn this and understand, because I could sense and see the power in it. And especially when it came to women and how they are uniquely designed and what they bring to the table for their families and their companies and everything else. So
amazing. And what does human design do? How do you start with analyzing people's personalities a little deeper, because we're all familiar with the current assessments that people use in human resources, and it's obviously to try and understand their personality so they can be managed, and also how they manage others. How does human design work differently from what we're currently familiar with?
you know what, that is a really great question. And these other design tools look at personality, they look at your skills, they assess all kinds of different things. But human design is actually a blueprint for the individual. It measures, or it doesn't measure, it helps the individual identify their gifts and their talents and their challenges. And using this in context maybe with some of the other assessment tools actually creates really powerful, integrated, harmonious teams. And this human design technology has not been adequately picked up and used yet. It's becoming more mainstream, but it hasn't been used by corporations in an HR setting. And what's fascinating about it is the different types, and we can talk about this in just a minute, but the different types and how they interact with one another and what they're uniquely designed to do in life. So, you have somebody who has an assessment that says, they're an introvert or they're an extrovert, or, they have this and they have that and the other. And I've had probably all of the all of the assessments in the past. But what I love about human design is it identifies for the individual as well as the hiring team how this person is going to integrate and work with other individuals. And everybody has their own unique signature and their own unique what energy, I use that word very loosely, but it is part of your human design and how it interacts with other people in the workplace, as well as in sales or marketing, or if you're in a clinical setting. It's been absolutely fascinating to apply this for my clients.
Wow, that sounds like almost like a handbook for every employee that you've got. How does it work on a practical level? Is it questions? How do you find that out? And you mentioned there's energy types. Give us a little rundown of that. Is it categories, or how do you go about finding out what energy type somebody is?
So in human design, there are 4 basics and 1 hybrid. So there are manifestors, generators, and then the hybrid manifesting generator. Then there are projectors and reflectors. And each one has its own, like I said, kind of an energy signature. Manifestors have this energy that pushes. They're like the bulldozers, and they get everything done. You know, they push energy and people and things out of the way, as well as push projects forward. They literally can speak something and it happens. They're designed to be the person out there in front making things happen. Excuse me. Generators and manifesting generators have this warm, attractive, they draw and magnetize people and situations and circumstances to them. And they, and generators and manifesting generators have some different ways, some basic ways and some different ways of interacting. So a generator has this warm flow in, they respond to energy, and then, they receive energy and then they respond to it. And that's what they're designed to do. And going back to manifestors, they have this push energy, but if they will inform the rest of us what they're doing, then they don't end up feeling like they're kind of cold or calculating or controlling. So that's one piece. And then manifesting generators also have this warm, inviting, ooh, yeah, let's do this. But because they also have the generator and the manifesting generator type together, that hybrid type, they receive information in and then they respond. They have to envision it. Does this really work for me? Maybe not. Then they reprocess, then they inform, and then they act. And we can talk about that a little bit more in detail later. And I also talk about it in my training. But projectors have this very interesting energy, and they go straight in. And so it's penetrating, and it makes people feel kind of naked and vulnerable because they see everything. Wow. And they also have this ability to focus and to see the bigger picture. They learn holographically. And so they're perfect to have as like a project manager or, somebody in human resources that can see the bigger picture. They're absolutely here to help guide and direct the generators, manifesting generators, and even to inform and direct some of the manifestors. They have very unique gifts and talents. And then reflectors have this it's almost like hummingbird energy is what I feel like. It kind of goes out and sips all of the energy in the environment. So they end up with this huge, vast access to everything in the environment. They can appear to be kind of spacey in a way, but they're not. But they just process information so differently, and they are extremely rare. They're about 1% of the population. So I have met 2 in my career.
Wow.
So and I've done hundreds of charts. So, but they're amazing because they have this innate wisdom that because they have access to all of the energy in the environment, they have access to every, that huge, deep well of wisdom that all of us really need. So in a corporate setting, in a business setting, it's really advantageous to have every single one of these types in your management teams and in your work environment, because we also bring a lot, a lot of our own personal stuff into the workplace. It helps to understand what the other types are, how they're interacting, and how it can trigger all the stuff that's brought in. And the other piece of work that I do that is healing work, and we're not talking about that right this minute, but I also help companies identify, or, to work with the individuals so that the teams work harmoniously. And it makes the corporations far more sustainable. It makes your teams much happier. There's significantly less turnover, and illness rates drop almost to nothing. So it's really, really beneficial from a corporate standpoint, from a monetary standpoint, and from a longevity standpoint.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. It's obviously interesting to see when you have teams. The first thing that you do when you plan either a project team or if you start setting up a company, if you are owner of a business and you have got the different types, and what are some of the roles? You mentioned a manifestor and that they're good for pushing ideas forward. And then you mentioned a projector for project management. Where do you typically find, with your experience, where do you find those different energy types most likely in terms of putting them into roles where they can really excel and tap into their real natural way of energizing themselves first, and then having work that stimulates their energy and they're in their zone of genius when they work?
I love this question. And it's so important to understand how each one of these different types work. So manifestors, again, have this ability to speak something into being. They have this viewpoint, and it's like they just march forward, and the waves part, and they get things done. So they could easily be a CEO, or they could be a project director of some sort that gets the ball moving, and then the rest of the team fills in the workspaces. But they're here kind of to just push that energy, to get it going, and to keep an eye on how all of the pieces and parts are flowing together. Then you have the generators, and they really are the workhorse of the world. And they're about the generators, and manifesting generators make up about 70% of the population. And historically, they have been used as the builders and the carpenters, the laborers of the world. They're the ones that helped build the pyramids, technically. So, but they have this unstoppable energy. And because they have this energy that is in the sacral area of the body, it's this motor, and they're like the energizer bunnies. They just keep going and going and going and going and going. And they have to burn out their energy every single day so that they get a good night's sleep. They are perfect for being the worker bees in a way. And it's not that they don't have, vast intelligence and gifts of their own, but they have this amazing energy, and they love to work. They love to get the job done. And so if you have a manifestor in a generator type of a job, you've got somebody who's bored and who is discontented, they're unhappy, and they don't feel like they're being fulfilled, and they want to tell everybody else what to do. And the rest of the work team says, I don't think so. And it can create a lot of conflict, especially. So, and then manifesting generators are, I'm lumping them together in this with, for this particular one. they would make really great middle managers, so that they can take the information that they're being given from, the greater perspective, and work with their generator teams with a little bit of course correction. And the information between the CEO or, the head of the team is really powerful information for the manifesting generator. The projectors are the ones who can see the project ahead. They're the ones that are like the manifestor says, here's the project. I'm gonna come in and we're gonna get this done. And the projector says, okay, and what if we look at it this way? Because they have this whole huge, broad outlook of how something sees. They have the ability almost to see into the future. They can see all of the risks. They see everything. And it can be frustrating for a manifestor because it's like, know it all. But if they understand the value of what the projector brings, then they can work harmoniously together. Manifesting generators and generators really, really love working with projectors, because the projector gets to see and kind of redirect in many ways how the project is going. The other thing about a projector is they don't have that sacral inner motor that generates their own energy. They have to borrow energy from the generators and manifesting generators. So if you put them in a workhorse type of position, they burn out, and they burn out fast. And I've said the fastest path to death for a projector is trying to act like a manifestor, a generator, or a manifesting generator, because they don't have the physical vitality to do that. Now, that doesn't mean that they're weak. It doesn't mean that that they're not healthy. What it means is they don't have a source of inner energy like the other types do. And then a reflector is a perfect part of the team to really assess what's going on, not just in the corporate environment. And sorry, my hands are moving all over the place.
That's all right. We're allowed to be out in a minute.
But also outside of the company. They're awesome at customer retention and being able to bring in the resources, because they can see what is needed as well. They have this amazing wisdom. They need the ability to be in an environment, and it needs to be a very healthy environment at home and at work for reflectors. Otherwise, they get ill very quickly because they have almost no defenses. So all of the other types have this body graph where they're, and when we do yours, I can show you exactly what I mean. But there are 9 centers, and each one of those 9 centers has the ability to be open, which means it shows up on your body graph as white, or it's sorry, what's the right word? My brain just went completely blank. Defined. That's the word I was struggling for. Oh my gosh. So it's defined or open. And if it's defined, then that center behaves in a different way than when it's open. When you open, and reflectors all 9 centers are wide open. So they're constantly being bombarded with all kinds of energy. Not only are they being bombarded by it, and it's how they're easily conditioned, but they're also amplifying others who have these defined areas. So understanding how this works in a workplace is a little complex, but when you understand it, it is so elegant and it is so helpful, and it changes the environment of the workplace, because people can then really, really work together. And again, the productivity massively increases, and you make more money. You get and make and retain more money as a business or a corporation. So it's a big deal.
It is so fascinating. I'm hooked. I want to try and find out what I am and how I fit in with my team. It certainly puts finding the right buttons to push in a completely different context. It's almost like you're oiling the wheels of the machine to make sure everything is working smoothly and everyone works within what they're naturally good at. So I think it will be a great tool to try out and dive into this one, because it gives you another layer of it almost takes the charge off, because if you've got it sounds almost like if you have the wrong things paired up and there's friction, you often make that conclusion that it is personal. It's just that person is difficult. While as you reframing, taking that personal element out of it and looking at it from a purely factual point of view to go, no, that's fine. He's just designed that way. Have you thought about putting the person over here? Because that would naturally fit into his type of blueprint. And then he is giving you a much better result, because, and like you said, employment satisfaction is always at a highest level when they're doing something that naturally feels good at what they really enjoy as well, rather than being, I don't know, pushing a square peg in a round hole almost. And you're looking at it holistically. So fascinating. How, in your own personal journey, how has understanding human design redefined the word power for you in terms of like powering through and pushing through? Has a lot to do with obviously how we are designed. Is it natural to us, or is it something we'd much rather let others do and we click in somewhere behind and be okay with it? How did that come about for yourself? How do you work on your own power with the knowledge that you have in your field?
You know what, that is such a great question. I wished I'd had this when my kids were little, to be honest. It would have made me a significantly better parent. because I would have understood how my energy is interacting not just with my husband's, but also with each of my children. And it's the same in a corporation. If you understand where each of you fit together and how you come together energetically, if you recognize that someone's energy is pushing against you, or someone is inviting you in and you're like, I'm good here by myself. Or if somebody, if you've got a projector that's like energy, penetrating your auric field all the time, and you feel like, just stop. I didn't invite you to.
Sounds like they can push your buttons too.
Absolutely. Well, it can. And the thing about projectors that I didn't say earlier is that because they see and they know, they want to tell everything that they know, but they haven't been invited to share that information. And so they're annoying to the other types if they haven't been invited. And yet when they are, and the biggest thing for a projector is they don't feel seen. Now, in the environment of a corporation, they tend to disappear. So energetically, unless the other team members recognize, oh yeah, so, Michelle, how do you feel about this? What do you think about this? That's the invitation. And networking from an entrepreneurial standpoint was a screaming nightmare. I'm a projector. And so
thank you. That puts it into, that's interesting to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm a splenic projector, and that means that I have this instantaneous knowingness. I see, sense, feel, hear, know. I'm kind of on the woo side in some ways, and yet very, very practical. But at networking meetings, I would walk up to somebody and introduce myself, and I'd say, hey, blah, 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 yada, yada. And all of a sudden you'd see them go. hey, it was like, I'm standing in front of you. Are you kidding me?
That's a great example, because I think networking is one of those things you either love it or you tend to be like, oh, it's not me. Would it be interesting to take a room of people networking and find out where they fit? It would be I think it would be a fun thing to do in a setting like that, to break the ice
really
and
would.
know, okay, well, all the projectors over here, all the manifestors over here, and let's just get to know each other. Certainly a fascinating talk, and I think the audience is probably going to be all leaning in to go, I want to know how this works. So I really appreciate the rich conversation of sharing that team dynamic in that way, because I think we struggle sometimes with having harmonious teams and really getting the best out of our employees, because if we over challenge them and it's not their zone of genius, then they can feel out of their depth and they probably go, I'm not happy in my job, and you never quite understand why. While as the tools that you provide an HR team, it sounds like a game changer to me. So if you're in the audience and you are fascinated like I am sitting right here, Michelle is a treasure trove of information, and I hope that you have had some key bits of knowledge drop in with you, or maybe you're curious. Go and interact in the group with us, because we'll be in there. I'd love to know your take on it and where you think. Do you think you're a projector? Do you think you're a manifestor? It will be interesting to see. And if you want to become a VIP Power Sister, you can sign up for our VIP ticket, and you will have access not just to all the interviews for a lifetime. You'd also get the amazing trainings that each of our speakers has provided. So Michelle has put some really nice goodies in there as well to dive deeper. And give us your comments, and I hope to see you for the next interview and for the days to follow. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here with us and for sharing this interesting tool. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people go, ooh, let's find out what I am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on your show.
Our pleasure.